something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. So let's sing that chorus again. And here we go now. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. And I'll do the verse now. The higher you build your barriers, oh, the taller I become. Ooh, the further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me. You can decide to turn your face away. But no matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. So this is a good one just to just make sure you take a good stretch. The more you refuse to hear my voice, oh, the louder I will sing. Ooh, you hide behind walls of Jericho. Oh, your lies will come a-tumbling. Deny my place in time. You squander wealth that's mine, but my light will shine so brightly because there's something inside so strong. Oh, I know that I can make it, but you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. All right, let's just sing that chorus one more time. Here we go now. There's something inside so strong. Well, I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Something inside so strong. Ooh, something inside so strong. One more time. Oh, something inside so strong. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park. It has been some week, and I'm so glad that we are all together as we think about what's gone on, as we process it, and we think about where we are going from here. And of course, this is an interfaith congregation. We celebrate diversity and treat ourselves and others with respect. Our gatherings here at the Church at Ocean Park educate and challenge us in our relationships to self and others and the world. Embracing creative expression, singing at every drop of a hat, working for social justice, and all of the parts of our spiritual life together. I'm Dr. Kim Harris, and it has been a week, but you are welcome, whoever you are here at the Church in Ocean Park, whatever religious tradition you are a part of here at the Church of Ocean Park. If you're not part of a tradition, you're welcome here at the Church in Ocean Park. If you are fasting for Ramadan, you are welcome here at the Church in Ocean Park. If you are eating the last of your Easter candy now, you are welcome here at the Church in Ocean Park. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And I know we are bringing many things with us, and we'll get a chance to think about that all together. And that's one of the great things of being here. Now, Reverend Janet asked if I would just share a little bit of the kinds of things that are on my mind. Well, early in the morning on Wednesday, I got a call from America Magazine, and they said, can you write a little bit about what you are thinking? And they were asking 7 Black Catholics, most of us are all professors, and they said, so what are you thinking about in this week? And remember, this Wednesday morning after the verdict came in. And here's a little bit of what I said. Even before the verdict was about to come in, I just found myself weeping. And then when it finally did come in, I was relieved and I felt like I could breathe again, but I was weeping first of all for George Floyd's family. And even as I might feel jubilation and some kind of relief, he is still dead and this verdict does not bring him back. In many ways, I feel that accountability was served, but justice, going to take a long way to get to justice, because justice is about right relationships. And in this country, we are not about right relationships yet. But this is a beginning. And we can't start toward right relationships unless we have some kind of accountability. We've got to get to the root of what is happening in our culture and understand that only a change in culture is really going to help us move to becoming anti-racist. And as I was listening to so many people that were speaking, on the radio and television, well, of course, and I know you probably heard her too, but I heard our friend, Dr. Melina Abdullah. She was on, of course, several different times. And here is some of what she had to say, and it so resonated with me that I put it in the article. I said, as a Black woman, and this is what I want to say, and this is echoing the words of Dr. Melina Abdullah, who, as you know, is one of the founders of Black Lives Matter at Los Angeles. We need to be sure to take some moments of rejoicing. Even though we know that there is much to do, we need to not just pass over the moment of rejoicing, because we absolutely need to do that for self-care. But then we need to continue our work. And I heard those same kinds of words again this morning. On NPR, they were interviewing a group of people here in Los Angeles who had gathered thinking about and remembering the Armenian Genocide. And some of the people who had gathered echoed those same kinds of words. They said, we have been waiting decades to have an acknowledgement of the genocide, decades for an American president to acknowledge that it was a genocide and to actually use that word. And of course, President Biden said that just yesterday, that it was a genocide. And then the person said, we need to take some moments of rejoicing, some moments of satisfaction, and then we need to keep on doing our work. So there are so many people that are thinking that and feeling that we have to remember that there have been some strides that have been won, and then we have to continue to do our work. So as we go on with thinking and reflecting this Sunday morning, everyone, please take a good deep breath. Let it out. Another deep breath. And one more deep breath. And then we will chant together. I have arrived. I am home. In the here and in the now. Our Thich Nhat Hanh chant 3 times, please. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Gollery McKeithen, and I'm the minister at the church in Ocean Park. And some of you may have arrived this morning expecting to hear Paul Shuri, but we realized that we need to, as a community, debrief what has happened this week. Thank God for a guilty verdict. The alternative was unconscionable, but it was out there. I'm grateful for the courageous Darnella Frazier, whose video was instrumental. I'm grateful for all the brave testimonies. I'm grateful that some folks have now broken through the strong caste system and can see what's right in front of them and has been every single day. This week, we breathed a collective sigh of relief. Finally, a white police officer was found guilty of killing a Black man. But it wasn't the kind of relief that your body all exhales everything, all the toxins that are in it and everything's fine. Not that kind of relief. This relief is grounded in ongoing pain and generational trauma. The United States was built on a caste system, which holds one group of people as superior to all other groups. It's powerful infrastructure. It defines a person's humanity and role in society by their physical characteristics. It's so embedded in our culture that Black Americans getting killed by police officers don't usually even cause us to take a break, even a little pause in our day. The policing prison system masquerades as a system of protection, but actually it's a system of trauma and death. It took the painful experience of watching one man beg for his mother with his last breath and lose his life at the hands of another man for some to wake up to what others already knew. Violent racism is a part of what our country was built on and what it is today. Systemic racism is embedded in our education system, in our religious institutions, our city structures, and in the injustice system. It's everywhere. Not because people are bad, but because it's built into our laws, into our books, into how we move around the world, into our movies, and it's embedded in our hearts. It takes a mammoth effort to realize the extent of the problem, much less make changes to the system. But we saw this week that it can be done. That's what I saw this week. I saw a glimmer of hope because some folks actually broke through the system enough to see that the killing of George Floyd is wrong. Thank God. Thank God for that. Hallelujah. They broke through and they realized that the killing of a Black man is wrong. But let's be clear, this isn't justice. Justice would be George Floyd via Breonna Taylor, Dante Wright, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Ma'Khia Bryant, who is a 16-year-old girl who was killed almost at the same time as the reading of the verdict, and so many others having their lives back. Justice is abolishing the system that was created to keep the dominant culture in its superior place. Justice is Black mothers and fathers not having to worry that their children might get shot if they go get a candy bar or go to the gym or walk or jog or sleep. Justice is many things, but what happened in the courtroom was a brief moment of accountability, but it was not justice. This week, the window cracked open a bit, and much needed and much longed for hope drifted in. And now it's up to all of us to break down the windows all the way down and tear down the walls too. There are strong forces and systems designed to keep the structure in place so that people will not realize what's happening. We need to crash open the walls and make it obvious. Many of you know that the Committee for Racial Justice began about 10 years ago, and the leaders of Santa Monica denied that racism existed here by the ocean. We need all the vision and hope we can get. Things can change. Now is the time to set our priorities right. Let's stop prioritizing systems of punishment and death and create and support systems that uplift and strengthen, especially the Black community. Now is the time to get serious about reparations when people are breaking through. Yeah, it took some folks a while, took all of us a while, but who cares? We broke through. Let's grab this moment and together let's be a healing presence, and let's not take baby steps. Let's make real systemic change together while we have this opening. I'm grateful that you are all a part of the church in Ocean Park, and together we can make a difference.
Thank you, Janet. You're such a strong voice. Let's sing Ella's song. I put the words in the chat, and you know this as We Who Believe in Freedom Cannot Rest. It's by Bernice Johnson Reagon of Sweet Honey in the Rock. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Sing that again. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of Black men, women, daughters, and sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can shed some light as they carry us through the gale. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hand of the young who dare to run against the storm. shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Yes, so we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. So we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Last time, let's sing it. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Thank you.
I think I'm the next person up to talk about this past week. I'm Trudy Goodwin, a member of the church. On April 20th, a guilty cop was convicted of all of the charges against him for the murder of George Floyd. Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder. We don't see this often. We rarely see this. But let's make no mistake. As Janet said, this isn't a sign that our criminal justice system is working. In fact, it's a sign that it is broken. It is a sign that it has never worked for us, and we have to move towards abolition. It is an abolitionist world we still have to forge for the memory of George Floyd. The verdict was a victory because it was a victory of accountability. Accountability is rarely seen in cases like this because the country cannot imagine that the entire system is corrupt. Most of the prosecution's case against Chauvin made a point that his guilt should not be understood as reflective of a guilty system. Quote, they call members of law enforcement to the stand, including Chief Arradondo, who at less contested to the aberration of Chauvin's actions. In fact, he stated the strategy seemed to be designed to win over jurors who saw something criminal in what the cop had did, but did not want to pass judgment on the police. This was a quote from Judith Butler, who is a known philosopher. Due to the complicity of the entire justice system in anti-Black oppression, the courts will not deliver the vast reckoning, reparations, and real justice that we need. We must keep in mind that the overabundance of now entrenched right-wing jurists and their ever-growing flood of anti-protest laws, the courts will remain sites of difficulty for those involved in liberation struggles and places of ongoing and daily oppression of Black people will continue. Chauvin's conviction changes none of that. Nothing has changed the underlying conditions allowing the murder of Floyd in the first place. The killing of Dante Wright and Adam Toledo within the last month assured that without the alienation of the criminal punishment system, we will be here in this space again. This is why Black people are in such pain. This is why we must have abolition. In the same breath we witness a conviction, the same breath we witness a child shot by a cop. That's because there is no justice for Black people in this country yet. That's because there's no freedom yet for Black people in this country. When I heard the verdict read, I felt two things. First, I felt like my children and my grandchildren could have this one victory, something none of them had experienced in these decades of watching cops getting away with killing unarmed Black people. And I fought back angry words as I thought of my mother in the 1960s fighting against what? Police brutality in Los Angeles. Over 50 years of my life, I have witnessed the murder of Black men and women, and nothing has changed systemically. And what we haven't discussed is how this anti-Blackness, the hate for the other, has saturated the very fabric of American life. I wonder how many of us were fooled into thinking that the tip of the iceberg we thought identified the density of racism only revealed a minute portion of the gargantuan underwater mountain of hate. We can no longer deny the presence and depth of racism that affects our daily lives. So here, I want to lift up the bright and loving spirit of my oldest grandson, Mario, who is compassionate and yet mischievous and filled with humor. He recently completed a painters union apprenticeship and is now fully employed after several years of working as a casual laborer as a unionized painter. But recently we learned that the members of the union, most of them, are bigoted and as dangerous as the so-called patriots that stormed the Capitol. When they are on assignment away from home, these so-called patriots share hotel rooms with my grandson. And they sit there and they drink and they watch Fox News. Mario remarked to us the other day that one of the workers used the word nigger. And so Mario called him out about it. And the worker replied, "We all use that word around here, so you better get used to it." My family is nervous beyond belief because this week, Mario has to ride to Spokane, Washington for a job that lasts 3 weeks in a truck filled with these so-called patriots with a bumper sticker on the back of their cars that supports law enforcement and Trump. We are praying that nothing happens to him at the hands of these folks, emboldened by Trump and a nation that considers it okay to announce that you're anti-Black. My grandson's safety has strengthened my resolve to fight on. Just like the taking of George's life strengthened my resolve to fight on. I'm ready to move people away from anti-Blackness and towards abolition. I'm ready to move to a place where there are no jails, no prisons, nor surveillance, a place where people do not feel comfortable using the word nigger around a Black man sleeping in the same room with them. So we have to imagine a world where Black people are thriving. This country is so obsessed with Black death that we must imagine Black life. Dante Wright should be alive today. George Floyd should be alive today. Adam Toledo should be alive today. Now that is justice. That's love. That's healing. So let's all imagine today, family. Imagine abolition. Imagine a place where Black folks can live freely, where we can live out our whole full lives, where all Black men are able to grow old, where there's no fear of being gunned down by the police. We can live a full, healthy life. That's what we must imagine now.
Thank you, Trudy. So I'm Bob Gordh, Trudy's husband, and I have some things to say. Several days ago, I attended, not in person, but I got to hear a lecture sponsored by UCLA by Frank B. Wilderson III, who is the author of a book called Afro-Pessimism. I haven't read the book yet, but his lecture gave me some real food for thought. I've written down some, it helped me to see the trial in a certain way. So I wrote down some thoughts, which I will share with you. After I read what I've written, I'll add a few more comments. So the title of my piece here is Derek Chauvin and Anti-Blackness. There's something even more terrible than white supremacy that has plagued the lives of Black Americans throughout American history, and that still plagues their lives today. That something, Frank B. Wilderson III claims in his recent book entitled Afro-Pessimism, is anti-Blackness. What is the difference between white supremacy and anti-Blackness? These are his terms. From the white supremacist perspective, humanity is a hierarchy, a scale of being, and Black people are generally placed at the bottom of the scale. This is terrible enough. But from the anti-Black perspective, as Wilderson defines it, Black people are not even on the scale. And that is more terrible still. According to anti-Black ideology, Black people are inferior to other people, but not merely inferior. They are ontologically distinct from other people. That is, they are a different kind of being. not just lower on the scale, but over here somewhere. In fact, they are not really people at all. They are not human subjects, but objects to be used or discarded. They have no intrinsic worth. This, of course, describes the slave master's mentality. In Wilderson's view, the term white supremacy understates the viciousness of this mentality. Unfortunately, Wilderson believes this mentality has been operative in American life ever since the time of slavery and is still operative today. Perhaps the most infamous official US government espousal of anti-Blackness is to be found in the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision of 1857. Dred Scott, who had been an enslaved person in the South, sued to become officially free after he had been brought to Missouri, where slavery was illegal. The court decided not only that Scott could not have his freedom, but also that he had no legal standing even to sue for it. Roger Taney, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at that time, went on to make the blanket declaration that, quote, the Negro has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. No rights, none whatsoever. The implication, as James Cone points out in The Cross and the Lynching Tree, is that to be Black meant that whites could do anything to you and your people, and that neither you nor anyone else could do anything about it. Sounds sort of familiar. The implication is not just that Black lives matter less than white lives, but rather that Black lives don't matter at all. The Dred Scott decision was supposedly voided by the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution. And yet, over the years, tragically, Black Americans have had many, many reasons to suppose that Taney's horrifying pronouncement is still the law of the land. And nowhere is this more true than with respect to the criminal justice system, including both the police and the courts. Philip M. Stinson, in an article entitled, "This Case is an Outlier," points out that less than 2% of the on-duty police officers who kill someone are ever charged with a crime and held accountable in courts of law. Considering that Black people are very disproportionately the ones killed, this statistic comes pretty close to indicating that where police violence is concerned, Black people still have no rights that a white man is bound to respect. According to Professor Wilderson, Derek Chauvin's crime against George Floyd should be considered a ritual murder, a murder with a meaning, a murder that expressed a terrible message that goes beyond white supremacy to anti-Blackness. Chauvin's conduct was worse than just a terribly discriminatory and terribly excessive use of force. It was an act of absolute contempt for the very humanity of its victim. An acquittal in this case, in which the evidence against the officer was so overwhelming, would have sent a devastating, chilling, anti-Black message to Black Americans. A message that, as far as the criminal justice system is concerned, they truly do not matter at all. we can rejoice, as Kim said, that in this case, that message was not sent. But we should not, of course, be under the illusion that this one victory banishes anti-Blackness from American life. Wilderson's characterization of anti-Blackness as a toxin more deadly even than the toxin of white supremacy suggests that what Black people face in our society is more deeply threatening and destructive than even white folks like myself, who consider ourselves strongly anti-racist, have been able to fathom heretofore. It suggests, moreover, that those of us who are not Black are called with greater urgency than ever to stand in solidarity with those who are. I just want to add something about, it may sound sort of mundane, but about terminology. I'm not entirely comfortable with Dr. Wilderson's terminology, just in the sense that I might be inclined to think of anti-Blackness as maybe one type of white supremacy, as opposed to being different from white supremacy. But I don't think the semantics here are, need to be a problem. One way I think of it is this, that you can think of racism as a kind of sickness or disease, but it's one with various strains. And some strains are more virulent than others. And I think what Wilderson is pointing out, that what he calls anti-Blackness is a very deadly strain. Not in the sense that it kills the person who has it, but it can lead the person who has it to kill Black people. And generally to see them as, not even human. And that's a somewhat worse strain, even, than the strain which leads people to think of Black people as the lowest on a hierarchy. The anti-Blackness is they're not even on the hierarchy. And then there are milder strains such as color blindness, which may lead the people who have that strain of the illness mainly to be sort of indifferent to racial injustice. And that's, that's bad enough too. But the anti-Blackness is so serious, and I don't think many people really credit its existence. We're not likely to realize that some people have that. And unless we face up to that, the criminal justice system is going to remain all too infected by it. Thank you.
They say that freedom a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. Oh Lord, we've been struggling so long. We must be free. We must be free. They say that freedom is a constant crying. They say that freedom is a constant crying. They say that freedom is a constant crying. Oh Lord, we've been crying so long. We must be free. We must be free. They say that freedom is a constant dying. They say that freedom is a constant dying. They say that freedom is a constant dying. Oh Lord, we've been dying so long. We must be free. We must be free. Oh Lord, we've been crying so long. We must be free. We must be free. Oh Lord, we've been struggling so long. We must be free. We must be free. Oh Lord, we've been struggling so long. We must be free. We must be free.
Thank you, Kim, so much. It's time now for community sharing. Please raise your hand in the participant menu. I see Craig's hand. Go ahead, Craig, unmute.
Thank you to Trudy and Bob. When I look at the verdict, I too, was shocked and surprised. There was celebration, at the same time, I question very seriously why people are celebrating a man going to jail, but then I see also that celebration wasn't just him going to jail, but it was a larger statement. In the aftermath of this, though, many quote unquote Republican governors and state legislators have crafted legislation that absolve people who strike with a motor vehicle, people who are protesting, if indeed they feel threatened. And it sounds that it reads so subjectively as to what is defined as a protest, and why are people being absolved. And I'm wondering specifically, and this is just a general open question to anybody, just what in the way of strategy is being looked at to address that, because as you so eloquently stated, after the verdict, there were a number of African Americans that were shot and killed by police officers, thus more or less causing rise to protests. So then what can we do to more or less ensure that the safety of those that protest have, that sustained within this whole question?
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Linda Bond, I think that the raise hand is not in participants anymore. I think it's under chat or it's under reactions. Go ahead, Linda.
It's muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, in regard to that, it is in participants, and and now I can see that Claudia's hand is working, as was mine. There's so much, and I'm so grateful to be part of this community. And there's so much, and honestly, after the song that Kim chose, it's actually hard to proceed. But last weekend when I was in LA, I was at the corner of Slauson and Crenshaw with Raul and Vicky and Getacho. And you can see in my background that Vicky's holding a sign, that says George Floyd, Dante Wright, Adam Toledo, how many more? I was the one holding the camera, that's why I'm not in the picture. And then I was, on Wednesday I was putting newspaper Red Flag to bed, and we were editing what we had written about George Floyd when we read about the murder of Ma'Khia Bryant. I have to say, I taught at Manual Arts for a long time, and what I've read about her life, and what a beautiful child, a beautiful young woman, beautiful child she was, and the way the entire system seems to have failed her. I'm feeling her very deeply, because she reminded me of so many lovely children who had this beautiful, I saw a TikTok of her doing her hair, and I find it so difficult to talk about this, but what I want to say actually is a couple of things that also I experienced this week. One is I was teaching U.S. history class at East LA College, and my screen share for the week before had a picture of Dante Wright, and a kid came on before class and said, I finally figured out what I want to do with my life. He's 18, finally. But anyway, he says, I finally decided what I wanted to do with my life, and then they killed George Floyd. I wanted to be a cop, and then they killed George Floyd. Now what? I think it's not just one bad apple, it's a whole bad system. And I think, I was explaining. So then I was talking to my grandson, Jax, who's an 11-year-old Filipino American kid. And I said, I think this is like Me Lai in a lot of ways. When they massacred people in Vietnam. They threw William Calley under the bus and continued a genocidal war. And we have to go beyond this. I mean, it's unthinkable. I mean, it's horrific to think what would have happened if Chauvin had not been convicted. But to know that they are more than willing to perpetuate the illusion that it's one bad apple and they can throw one cop or one murderer, one agent of imperialism under the bus if they want to continue the genocide. And so, you know, the struggle continues. And I'm so grateful to be here with this community to continue that struggle.
Thank you, Linda. Claudia.
Oh, so you have me here doing this on my own without the complicated setup of my husband, Greg. But, you know, maybe now you can hear me. It's okay. And they're coming home from Joshua Tree. I'm getting some texts. They're on their way home. It sounds like it's gone well. But what I guess I wanted to follow on with some of what Bob said. And those of you that are my age will remember when the book, The Bell Curve, came out, which I was doing my science training. So I was trying to understand statistics and what a bell curve meant and all of that. Although it was pretty shocking. And I have to say, I didn't actually read the book, but the idea was looking at the intelligence of Black people and using quote unquote science to prove that Black people do not have intelligence equal to that of white people. And I have some sense that what Bob just talked about is just trying to expand on that impulse of white people to do that. And to bring it to the present day, the woman, I'm having a problem with names, just what's happening to me with my senility. But I think her name is Karen Clark. It's the woman who was being confirmed for the civil rights, head of the civil rights division at DOJ. And it's being fought, although she just got confirmed. But she, when she was 19, wrote a satirical article flipping it around, saying there was a bell curve and white people are less smart than Black people. And that was brought up at our confirmation hearing as how racist she actually was, that she would even come up with such a statement in opposition to white people. And, you know, she had to say in the hearing, well, wait a minute, this was based on a book, you know, doing the other way. And so, I don't know, I'm glad we're talking about this. And I'm really glad that Bob brought up this idea, because I think it's more than just a few bad apples. There's really something there that are white supremacy, and we really need to think about it. So those are my ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia. Jean Gasca.
So, I have a question about abolition. It seems to me that there are people who deserve, because of the heinous acts that they commit, like serial murder or pushing drugs to children, child trafficking. I mean, there seem to be, to me, things that would deserve going to jail, and that I would want those people out of the mainstream. So I can't picture not having prisons. I of course, fully support that there are a huge number of people in prison who do not belong there for offenses that do not warrant being in prison, and that people of color are in proportionately the people who are there. So, you know, I'd like to see that change, but I don't understand how we could get along without some kind of police force and some kind of prisons. I think that we need to have a whole different kind of response team to go out to problems when people are emotionally charged, they're mentally ill, etc. I don't think that police are prepared for that. So I don't know who wants to answer that, maybe Trudy, but I can't picture a total lack of prison or police.
Trudy, do you want to say something? And then I have a response as well.
Yeah.
So do I, by the way.
So, Jean, the way that the abolitionists, starting with Angela Davis and coming into modern day movements to get rid of the prison system as well as policing, have framed this is that, number one, we're looking for ways to decrease the need for people to commit crime. And the way that we would go about that is by making sure that there was enough in everyone's community to so that they wouldn't feel a need to harm someone in order to get something that they felt that they needed, or push drugs. Or it's like, the more we are able to front load this system with goodness, the less opportunity there is for folks to do things that are wrong. There's no need. Secondly, no one is saying that they should allow people who are dangerous to wander the streets. The abolitionists look for ways to protect the public, but in non-punitive ways. We have to move away. We've moved away from dealing with children in punitive ways, and in dealing with each other on a daily basis when we come up against opposition from other people. We've learned how to deal with one another without being punitive. And so those folks that are looking to change the prison system and to get rid of policing are saying the same type of rules need to apply to jails. And folks need to look at transformative and reconciliation circles as ways to make people whole when they have been wronged, and to hold people accountable.
I'm going to go to Bob also, but I want to just say before he speaks, because it might affect what he's going to say. I would like to have a small group discussing this, because it is a very involved. But there's been a lot of thought about how to do society without prisons and this kind of system that's so toxic right now. So I think we should have a small group discussion, and I will be putting that out on this weekly email. But go ahead, Bob.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have there's a great book that I would recommend, maybe for the book group, but it's called Until We Reckon. That's a great book on the subject. But yeah, I'll sort of emphasize what Trudy is saying, that when I think of abolition, I think of the replacement of our current justice system with a qualitatively different approach to public safety. Not just a difference of degree, but a different quality to it, which would be not punitive, but constructive and rehabilitative, but would also hold people accountable because accountability can be healing both to the perpetrators and the victims of harm doing. But within that qualitatively different system, there still might be a need for confining certain people who are dangerous. But I think the way in which they would be confined would look different than our current prison systems. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you all. Rachel Rose Lucky, and I think that'll be our last word before Janet gets our last word. So Rachel?
Thank you. As you all know, I am always an advocate for the transgender community. And Bob said something earlier about Black lives being at basically the bottom of the totem pole as far as worth in society is viewed by some people. I think that there's a rung below that, and it is the trans community, particularly trans people of color. We are murdered at, Black trans folks in particular are murdered at a disproportionate number given our population, and that in all of these discussions, what I'm hoping to do here and now is to remind folks that there are some people don't like the word intersectionalities, but I'll use it today. But there are intersectionalities that exacerbate the situation, and I want to call that out for what it is, and to lift it up so that we don't forget to bring along everyone in these discussions, and to make sure that we advocate for the things that will protect and I guess at the end of the day, I think what we all want is an end to bigotry and hatred and racism, and I just want to make sure that everybody's included in that conversation.
Thank you, Rachel. I completely agree with that. I think that in our small group, when we do meet about abolition, that we need to keep that in mind as well. I want to share with you in closing this part of the service that the Church in Ocean Park's response to Derek Chauvin Trial verdict. And I'm putting it up there so you can also see it, but it's also on our website. The day we long awaited arrived, and the nation exhaled a collective sigh of relief. We had watched as potential thunderclouds rolled overhead with the threat of the nation once again denying justice. But the former police officer accused of killing George Floyd was found guilty on all counts of murder and faces 40 years in prison. And as many of us rejoiced in a victory for one minuscule act of justice, a young Black girl, Ma'Khia Bryant, fell to police violence in Ohio moments before the verdict for the murder of George Floyd was read. We know the verdict in the case of Derek Chauvin was long overdue and will not undo centuries of systemic racism. Ma'Khia's death illustrates that the guilty verdict in the Chauvin trial will not right the abhorrent police and carceral structures that led to the death of unarmed Black and brown people. We know that the tip of the iceberg we thought identified the density of racism only reveals a minute portion of the gargantuan underwater mountain of hate. We can no longer deny the presence and depth of the racism that affects our daily lives. Even the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now warn us that racism is a serious threat to public health. The Church in Ocean Park has long been committed to social justice and social change. We stand in solidarity with those who continue to gather to build power, fight to vote, and demand a world that defends and also celebrates, love, and embraces Black lives. It is because of our decades of building humane and justice communities that we remain determined to imagine that another world that we know is possible, a world where communities are transformed and our people are liberated. This Church in Ocean Park community will continue to work to better understand our role in dismantling a system that racially profiles and terrorizes communities just because they are Black. Through our empathy-informed work and understanding, we will look for paths to transform our lives and our communities into nurturing societies where all people are valued and loved. Because of a strong allegiance to radical love, the Church in Ocean Park proclaims its commitment to striving for the universal acceptance of all persons, and we dedicate ourselves to the vision of building and holding space for everyone. Our work is centered in the creation of a world where anti-Blackness is no more. We know our journey is long and includes roadblocks masquerading as allies. There is much work to be done, but we are devoted to our beautiful struggle to build a loving society. As George Floyd's brother, Bernice, reminded us, the struggle for justice for people of color in the United States remains an uphill battle. We have to march. We will have to do this for life, because it seems like this is a never-ending cycle. We remain committed to the dismantling of systems of injustice. Let us go forth and continue our work together for a beautiful world for all.
Thank you, Janet. That's beautiful that we have that. I put some words in the chat for this next song. Please join me. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your love